Hey guys, hope everything's going well. You guys know that drill. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, comment down below. Follow me on Instagram at AIH_sports. Follow me on my finance channel at AIH Finance. A few things. Number one, I did a podcast with the Luca Nation, two individuals in there, Andrew Goldberg, and also the Cage Lawyer. Very good interview. We obviously didn't agree on everything. We had an honest discussion that was good. I think more of that needs to happen with people with divergent opinions. So make sure to check that out. Other thing is the Cage Lawyer said hanky panky 6 times within a 30-second time frame. Dude, that's my phrase. Stop taking it away. All jokes aside. But yeah, make sure to check that video out. Now, this video is not about the hanky-panky. Talked a lot about it this week, but I wanted to actually look at a few videos that I saw. One guy that I like, Ziggy, and also Jeff Wilson. This is not an attack on Jeff Wilson. This is just more of an observation and just giving my own 2 cents, and I do want to ask you guys, are sports cards investments? Yep, I'll give you my take, and I want to hear from you guys. So, the thing is that a lot of people got back into it in 2020, 2021, prices went up like crazy. And in a lot of people's minds, they're like, hey, if it happened in 2020, 2021, it's going to happen. We're going to see maybe a watered down version. So we should get back in and be somewhat aggressive, right? And the gains that we saw were just ridiculously insane. And I believe in a concept called reversion to the mean, where prices eventually go back to normal. That's where we're at right now. And you'll see what happened in the past, like in 2018, 2017, where prices gradually go up. Unless the player really exceeds expectations, then if the player exceeds expectations like that, then the prices will be going higher for the cards, in my opinion. And what Ziggy was saying in his video was that, hey, sports cards are not investments. He was saying that, okay, there could be a few refractors that you, not refractors, some autos that you may want to own. Make sure to check out his video. I don't want to quote him incorrectly, but he's still not bullish on sports cards as of this moment. And Jeff Wilson, as you know, he's an investor, and he's talked about what his buddies were doing. And he talked about a lot of them, or some of them were talking about vintage. He said that, hey, it's liquid. You know, you could turn it into cash easily. That's his definition. I use liquidity in a different standpoint. I look at it from a bid-ask perspective, just like you see in other markets out there. Now, putting that aside, in terms of investing, and I'm going to take out the year 2020, 2021 because prices were an aberration, in my opinion. You just don't see that type of price action because they're not going to lock you down like that unless, you know, there's another pandemic. I don't see that. And on top of it, you had all of this government money coming in. Not only stimulus checks, PPP loans, the Federal Reserve zero interest rate policy, the whole 9 yards. People didn't have to pay mortgages for a while. They didn't have to pay rent for a while. So people had more cash on hand that they could blow on sports cards. And some people probably did that to try to recoup their money because they lost their jobs and then reinvest it or then pay their mortgage off, whatever. Right? Now all that funny money, all that liquidity is gone. And people are still, in my opinion, being very aggressive, thinking that they can do what they did a few years ago, or a watered down version. And if you just look at how collectibles and sports cards operate, they do very well in a negative interest rate environment and they do poorly in a positive interest rate environment. I like looking at it from a longer term perspective. And I know some people are going to say, hey, you're saying this over and over again. I had a conversation with Pancake Analytics. He's on Instagram, and he said that, hey, even if you say, even though it's repetitive, it's good to, drop the hammer on this topic. Just talk about this, because he probably thinks that there could be some correlation to it. Now, I believe there is. And if you look at when I got back into the market, interest rates were positive, 10-year yield. I forgot the exact rate, but November around that was close to the top. And you saw those positive interest rates in 2018 turn negative in early 2020. Card prices were going up before the pandemic, by the way. And the other thing people weren't talking about is that, hey, the 10-year tips was negative. And then you had the pandemic, positive interest rates for a bit, all that stimulus. So those positive interest rates in 2020 turned negative in later parts of 2020 and 2021. And there has been a shift now where it's post-pandemic. Those negative interest rates have turned slightly positive despite all the inflation, but I'm looking at it from a long-term perspective. The 10-year yield or 10-year tips is what, 20-some basis points? And in a positive interest rate environment, collectibles usually don't do well. You may have some cards doing well here and there, but overall, it usually indicates a slowdown. Now, I do believe there will be a dead cat bounce, but just in terms of investing in sports cards, it's just, in my opinion, it can be done, but you need to be picking the right spots. And the right spots is when interest rates are very, very, very positive. That's the time to get in. 2008 crash, for instance, I've discussed that. You look at 2020, that was a good time. Even 2018, I think it was like November, prices were so cheap at the time. And I'm not denying if someone buys a Babe Ruth card or a scarce vintage card that there will always be demand. Yes, there will always be demand for it. But if you noticed in the stock market the last few weeks, even the quality names have gone down. Like Apple stock, I was buying Apple stock last week. But Apple got pounded. And this is what happens during a slowdown. People panic. People may need the cash. Whatever the reason is, people lose their jobs. They have to panic sell to raise cash. And therefore, equities take a bite. Now, I don't think we're in a recession yet, but this is what's going to happen during the recession. I believe MTG Line was talking about it. He said that people come to him when times get tough to try to sell their collections to him. And I believe the best time to buy is when there's blood on the streets. People are desperate for cash. And right now, I don't see that desperation. And if we do get that recession I've been predicting in 2024, 2025, people may liquidate some of their cards. Not everyone, but people will start to liquidate their holdings just to raise cash. Hey, maybe they got laid off, and the only way to put food on the table and pay the mortgage is to sell some of their cards, sell some of their stocks, sell whatever it is, collectibles. So all I'm saying is, yes, you can invest in sports cards, in my opinion. Or people, let me rephrase this. I believe I can invest in sports cards. However, I need to be very careful when I want to be aggressive. And I see a lot of people being aggressive. Now, granted, some people may have a lot of cash, so they can afford to be aggressive. But what I'm saying is that you got to pick your spots carefully. And a lot of people, they don't. A lot of people look at, hey, 2020, 21, that happened just a few years ago. This thing's going to happen again. And I'm like, probably not. And you just got to look at history. Just read from old books. Collectibles didn't go up too much. Had a gradual rate of return, unless if it was solely high in demand or really high in demand. And on top of it, you had all this speculative hot money going into it. But putting that aside, you have to look at, okay, are we going to be in a positive interest rate environment or a negative interest rate environment during the next recession? Next recession, I believe positive interest rate environment. That time, if I have the financial means, I'm going to be aggressively buying during that time because people will be forced to sell. And yeah, there's probably going to be shill bidding. Yeah, there's going to be more scams coming about, but there comes opportunity. And I don't think just because a lot of people are now, you could say, being negative, I still believe a lot more scandals are set to break. A lot of more people are going to be caught doing the hanky-panky, man. So, in terms of sports cards being investments, there's a time to do it. You don't have to be investing every 2 weeks, every week, etc. But at the end of the day, I definitely want to look at sports cards for investments, but only when people are very fearful. For instance, last week, the CNN Fear Greed Index for stocks was at 6. That's very low. 2020, March 2020, it was at 1. The time to buy whatever asset, in my opinion, is when there is blood on the street and everyone's fearful and they don't want to buy. When everyone's saying recession, recession, recession. No, I mean, or when people are just freaking out. And people were freaking out last week, and that's when I was buying some of these stocks. I was scaling back in. And yeah, I'm still underwater in some positions, but I'm confident those will come back up. Because I still believe S&P 500, not investment advice, is going to be higher at the end of the year. So yeah, that's just my own thoughts. Anyways, I want to hear from you guys, our sports card investments, and if you do believe they're investments, why and how. All right, guys, let me know what you think. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't, and comment down below, guys. Thank you. Bye.